Hey guys, I'm in bir-billing, Indian paragliding topmost site. So I'm here meeting a series of people, and now today I have come to Gurpreet Dhindsa, who has put more than 2 decades of his life into paragliding, and he is here to share all his experience. Let's talk to him. Gurpreet, it's a 25 years of life you have put into paragliding. How did it all begin?
Um, Flying began with sailplanes, actually, gliders, in Punjab Flying Club in '93. And then the same instructor, my Captain Ralan, he introduced me to the concept of paragliding and suggested that I should take it up. I realized that he wanted to get rid of him because I was very overly curious student and bugged him a lot. And he suggested that something like paragliding would be much more suited to me because it's more individual and less bureaucratic. At that time, gliding clubs still they are same. They were very bureaucratic, and flying was very irregular at those places.
So sailplane, where was this and which year?
Pinjore Flying Club near Chandigarh, and 1993.
Okay. So you started in 94, 95?
95 I started into paragliding.
Okay. So you came straight away to bir-billing or Himachal?
No, my first introduction to paragliding was Bilaspur
Okay.
in Himachal Pradesh. Commandant Gautam was the person who was introduced by Captain Ralan to me. I went there and I helped him organize their first paragliding festival because I was working, I had some corporate contacts at that time. And after that, I learned from him or started learning from him. But soon I realized that, like having come from learning gliding, which is pretty organized and part of main aviation training setups, I came into paragliding and realized the things were quite haphazard. Commandant Gautam had never flown himself. He was teaching with the boys who were not instructor level and with the wrong equipment also. So I spent about 2 weeks with them and then I left and decided to do rest of the progression more or less by my own research.
Wow.
So that's how it happened.
So by then you had equipment?
No, actually, I still stupidly, I would say I went to the same person to buy my first equipment. And I was a very enthusiastic photographer, like you, like a hobby photographer. And I sold my camera system to buy my first glider.
Oh my God. I understand how painful it is to,
Yeah, it
give
was
up
very
one.
painful because I got sold wrong equipment. Yeah, I hardly used that equipment because it was not suitable. And I ended up having to buy the whole set again.
So I'm looking at the perspective of, you are giving up one love to buy another love, and you took that equipment and went on your own to practice.
Yeah, it was like not totally on my own. There were people helping me off and on. At that time, 95 also, internet was not that easily accessible in India. So I started like that. I did some training on my own. Then I went to Manali. I tried to meet up with people who were better flyers there, watching people and learning from them. Then I came to Bir and I realized that if I want to progress, I need to move here, which I did in 97. And then watching people, learning from them. Bruce was also around. Debu used to come here. There was Andy and all these pilots were here. So Gilles was good influence actually. And then people like Robbie Whittle and all these people also came through. In fact, Robbie Whittle was instrumental in me getting my opportunity to become an instructor without me knowing it. I learned about it many years later, what happened, how I got that opportunity. So um, some luck meeting right people and some luck surviving bad mistakes, we managed to learn.
Okay. So by then, that's your progression basically, right? You built your hours and
Yeah,
going in depth
yeah.
and meeting
I
right.
started in 95 and I went to do my instructor certification in 2001. And because bad things happened to me when I was trying to learn, I promised myself that I will not teach people till I'm like being judged by my peers to be instructor level. So I didn't do any commercial activity in paragliding till 2002. after my certification.
Okay. So, in 2002, then you started commercially?
Yeah, 2001, while I was doing my instructor certification, I had to work, which was the British rules that you have to work as a trainee instructor. So I had experience teaching in UK first, and then when I came here, I started teaching here.
Oh, okay. Okay. So that's the beginning of PG.
That was PG Gurukul beginning, yeah, 2002.
So, how was the business then?
Non-existing. I mean, from 2002 to 2006, I was still surviving by doing motorbike trips to Ladakh and treks and all this stuff. Money was not enough from teaching. 2007 onwards, then I finally was able to shut down the other activities and only focus on paragliding from there onwards.
It took 5 years for you to actually
Yeah.
see some money.
I won't say see some money, but at least become viable business by itself.
Okay.
I didn't have to supplement it with something else.
So, during that time, you used to go for competitions and
Yeah,
okay,
2002 onwards.
2002 onwards.
Yeah.
So where all? I mean, I heard first Indian competition happened in 2002 in bir-billing.
Yeah, that's where it all started. So we surprised ourselves by not doing so badly,
Okay.
and then the bug had bitten.
That's
Yeah,
the
that was yeah. And actually, for me, okay, paragliding when I learned it came very naturally, and because now I teach students and I see their struggle and everything. And despite bad instruction at that time and wrong equipment, I think I feel very blessed that it came very naturally to me and I didn't have to struggle much. It was everything came like natural extension of my thoughts or nerves. Some credit to having known aviation before with gliders, but mostly I think it's just aptitude question. So, and it's nothing to boast about. It's just that something you gifted with. But then to first recognize what you have gift for, and then to develop it is the thing that people should strive for. And I think I did fairly good with that part. But the real bug bit me when I started competing. That was the kind of flying I like. I don't still fancy much of this record making long distance flights. And I'm pretty busy as an instructor, but I still try to find time to compete, and that really motivates me still, and it makes me happy. And I like the crowd in competitions much more than the generic paragliding crowd. So that within paragliding also the competitive cross-country competition flying has motivated me much more.
Excellent. So 15 years of competition flying.
Yeah, 15 years.
And still going very well strong.
I try.
Yeah.
The spirit is there, body is lagging.
Okay. Bilaspur is the beginning of your paragliding. So after that, you managed to have purchase your own kit. And once you have your own kit, what is it you used to do that? And how do you used to figure out the places to fly and all that?
Initially, I was working in Chandigarh, and I was running my own business, fiberglass fabrication, industrial fabrication. And so nearest for me was to fly in Kasauli, and which was the area which I had flown on sailplane already. So I found out. I went 3 days to select a takeoff. First day I found something, I sat there. Second day I went with the glider and I sat there. I didn't dare take off. Third day I eventually took off, right? And then I flew there quite often, as much as I could. Mostly it was weekends or whenever I could get a break from work. Then at the same time when paragliding happened in my life, I decided that I need to move to mountains. I don't want to live in a city, so I kind of did that uncity thing. In '95, I gave up my business and I moved to. I started working with Banjara Camps. It's a company that's running different properties. So I managed a camp for them in Chel. I worked with them in Sangla Valley and then in Spiti also. I managed properties for them, and I flew all these places. I flew near Chel a lot. Then I flew in Sangla Valley also initially, and then in Spiti also. Did some flying, not that much because I was new pilot at that time, and the whole thing was scary. Couple of times I landed going backwards, and after that I kind of got a little scared of flying there. And I still say the same thing, that places can surprise you. It can be very good, but it can turn ugly very quickly also. So, but then I also traveled and we went down south. So when we did that, we flew every side that there was no Google Earth, so there was not much chance of
My next question is that how do you used to select or decide, okay, this is the mountain I should go and try, and wind direction and all that?
One is that I had some experience with mountains. I was very avid trekker, so I knew mountains a bit, like different ranges, which side they face and which one will be good or not. And I had technical bent of mind right from the beginning, so studying maps and all that. So some places I went because I remembered them to be good for flying. Some places we just checked. Like I was looking for a place in central India because I always did, and I still think that best place for setting a distance record in India is going to be Madhya Pradesh. So I found out this whole Mandu and Namda Ghat as such, and it's quite flyable. Only thing is there are not many landing options, and it's little undeveloped. There are not many roads, so you need to be little careful how you fly, and you need to be good pilot because there are not many places to land. There's a lot of forest below. So these places like Namda thing I found out from maps, and at that time Google Earth had come through, but flying in Uttarakhand and flying in Rajasthan and all we did only by previous knowledge or experience or just by traveling. Like even Saputara.
Okay.
Saputara was just through traveling. And Pavagadh we were invited by somebody to fly. We flew Pavagadh. Actually, I think me and Vijay were the first pilots to do cross-country flying there. We both achieved more than 40, he did 40 some kilometers and I did about 65 kilometers there. So accidental or through desire both.
My next question is basically, the entire progression is about, trial and error of yourself. So any memorable experiences, either good or bad, which you still remember?
All the pioneer flights we did in the sense that we went to Chel, and Chel is not like Kangra, it's not an open valley, and just the orientation of those valleys, where the wind will come from, was always a surprise, and winds picked up very quickly. I remember an incident where Diglu, there's this young boy, he used to be 14 or 15 at that time, he was flying already, and he came to visit me. I was running camp for Banjara in Chel, and I took him to fly this site, and we took off and we soared a bit, we gained height, and then I saw some clouds developing, so I knew the wind is going to pick up. There was no radio, we didn't have radios at that time. Okay. So I came across to him and I shouted at him that let's go. I made a signal that let's go, and he seemed to follow me. But just then there was like a busload of some college trip with a lot of girls in it. Ended up on our takeoff, and they started taking pictures. So of course Diglu started showing up. And I went almost halfway to landing before I realized that he's not following me. And him being younger, I felt like a little responsible for him. So I came back and kind of used some rough words to make him leave towards landing. But then as soon as we turned, the wind got so much that he, being lighter on his glider, started flying backwards. And I had to pull big gears quickly and go quickly to the nearest part of the valley where I could land. Even my landing was a little hard. I compacted my little toe a little bit, and then with that compacted, painful toe, I had to go searching for him, and I found him 40 kilometers downwind, but safe, fortunately. So we did that kind of things in those times. But as I said, some with luck and some with knowledge, we survived.
So, went to so many places. How you used to be, your transport is like what? How you used to travel?
With anything we could. Initially was scooter only. And I remember in, I think it was 97 only, the first time I actually came, or 96 autumn, I think. We came here, it was me and Alexei, a Russian pilot who used to live in Bilaspur. And we came two people on a scooter with two gliders.
How did you manage that?
One glider in front on a Vespa and one on his back. Was pretty tiring for him actually than for me. I was driving.
Was that a funny picture for people to watch it?
Probably, but I think resources were more limited in that times, and actually overloading of a scooter was pretty common on those days.
Yes, it's very common in India, yes.
Yeah.
Paragliding as a passion is a very expensive hobby, and down the years, when multiple years are rolling and a lot of money goes in. So how do you used to manage your finances?
One, I think initially we never considered the cost. It was just question of making it possible somehow, and was mostly used equipment that we were using. Money was really tight. After leaving my work in Chandigarh and moving to mountains, it wasn't so easy to make money as I thought it would be. Initially, the motorbiking trip work was very good for a couple of years, but then a lot of people came into it and the margins went for six. So money was tight, but mostly we never calculated actually. It was just that you use whatever skills you have to make your hobby possible. And it wasn't about, like, we were not investing in it expecting returns. We were just doing it because we loved so much, and we made it possible whichever way we can find the resources. So we're doing some, I was doing some lot of other activities like motorbiking and trekking to make it viable to continue doing, to live in mountains and continue, because I could move to cities and make much better money, but I realized that was counterproductive, because when you live in city you make more but you spend more also just for living in the city. So I soon realized that I need to move out, minimize my expenses, and only in that way I could afford money to buy gliders and to travel. So that was the only way. Don't spend 50,000 a month for your living only, and then you have money to spend on your hobby maybe. That was the formula.
So how did your connection happen to bir and make it as a base?
Just see, I was aware of bead from 88 onwards. I was studying in Guru Nanak Dev University, Amritsar, and I wanted to learn aviation, but I didn't want to go into services. And I heard about the hang gliding competition here, but unfortunately at that time were my semester exams. By the time I finished exams, the event was over. When I came here, there were only some Air Force officers and some Army officers left who were winding up and leaving. And I asked around if somebody can teach me hang gliding at that time, but nobody was willing to do. So that kind of, I knew bead and I knew that there was flying here possible and it's a good site, but made the connection again in about 96, 97 when I came with Alexei here, and Alexei told me like, oh, it's a very good site, and if you want to improve, you should fly here, and then took his suggestion and I moved here.
Excellent. And also I see you as a foodie, and I'm observing in last 2-3 visits that you spend a lot of your time into offering food as a service. So how did that all started, and how happy are you with that?
My association with cooking is, I used to cook for myself. I always like eating decent food. Like even for treks, people used to take Maggie, and I would say that no, I can't walk on Maggie. I need to reward myself. If I'm doing hard work, then I need to have decent food also. So I used to even prepare my small sacks of meal for trek, that you pick out one meal and that has everything. It has flavors in it. It has different ingredients. So you don't need to juggle a lot of things, open a lot of packs, but it was pre-planned. Whole meal was there proper. And I except for one trek, I never did Maggies on trek. In hostel, I was involved with when I was in university, we used to have contractual messes, and from that we were really dissatisfied with that food. So I was one of the people who took initiative, and we turned it into a cooperative mess. And I was in charge of food there and purchasing and everything. So I think food has always been a passion. Where it came from, probably my dad used to cook also. My mom, I mean, mothers cook, but my father also used to cook. So uh, for me, it was never a gender role. In our family, it was pretty
Very nice.
even interest.
Sir, so many years of paragliding. Would you like to share some of your achievements and milestones?
um, to begin with, I think first milestone was surviving. Despite wrong equipment and wrong teaching, we survived. That was a big milestone by itself. Second, I think, or the biggest, which has helped me even so far, was to go to UK and get certified by BHP as an instructor. And then I think competition bug bit in, and competition but it took a long time for us to become competitive. For me particularly, I wasn't. Debu was much more of a favorite in terms of competition winning. I was never rated. Maybe I was older and less likely to learn. But from 2002, it took me 7 years before I became competitive, and some of it had to do, like in 2009, which was my best year. It all started with somebody telling me that you can win. Why don't you try to win? And only then I realized that I'm holding myself back. I'm not believing that I can win. And I was on podium in next three events, and that's kind of a history that I was second in a pre-World Cup where I beat Yasin, who was the European champ for that year, and then number one in CIS Open, and then number three in Russian Open. So three podium finishes back to back just because I suddenly believed that I could win. So, but that doesn't mean that it all happened suddenly. It means that 7 years of competing had led to that, but then I needed a little nudge by somebody. Um, the sad thing is that no, that's something I hope doesn't happen to other people in India. Is that that nudge didn't come from my own community. My own community didn't believe in me, or nobody told me. It's rather, even after winning, I would hear talks like, "Oh, he always wins outside," or "He always wins in easy places," or something like that. And so I hope that community would learn to be more supportive of people who are putting that much into competing or trying to do well, because confidence is fragile. It can be easily, even at this stage, I would say that community's opinion can make me feel very sad or very elated. So for a competitor, you might think it's egoistic or whatever. They are very sensitive to approval. Actually, you do a lot of your things in your life for public approval or your community's approval. And if you want your competitors to do well, the approval and encouragement means a lot. Yeah. So we should be careful with this easy criticism, because words are cheap. Yeah. For a competitor, it took years to do something, and then word is cheap. You can blah 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 and destroy the whole thing. You know, and Facebook makes it even easier. So with that, we need to be particularly careful.
Yeah, if not encourage, at least don't
Discourage at least. Yeah, but I have felt destroyed many times over. So I can just convey as a message that it shouldn't be done. So let me explain on the impact of words in my life. How I'll go for the positive side first. So thinking quickly, I can actually remember three incidents or three comments that I heard about myself that made me perform much better. First, like I said, came from Orlin in Bulgaria. He was associated with the Skynomad school there. We were competing, and we were in the lead gaggle, and I took a slightly different line from everybody, expecting a north wind to come through at one pass, and I was in a good place, but I slowed down and let the gaggle catch because I didn't want to go on all alone in front. And later in the evening, Orlin came to me and he said, "Why don't I try to win? I have a good glider. I'm quite good with my flying and decision making. I was in a good place, and I should try to win." And till that time, I hadn't even accepted myself that I have capability of winning an international event. So that was the power of the words there. Then I had some really good comments from Debu, like in 2009, when I did this 3 podium finishes. I think he wrote somewhere that he thinks that I'm one of the most consistently improving pilots in India. I still remember that comment very fondly. And other comment came from Chris Davis, my chief instructor in UK. Somebody wrote to them asking about reference, taking a reference, whether they should learn from me or not. And he said that if he wants his son to take up paragliding, he'll send him to India to learn paragliding from me. So that was, so this is the positive side. So that can build a person up, and if you use it in opposite way, it can destroy also.
Yeah.
So it should be taken. Yeah.
You, Debu, Sony, and Adi, all four of you have started in 4 different places, and the vertical is more or less same. And it's a coincidence.
The location wise, I think it's irrelevant where we start. It's basically, but I have a theory about why we got ahead and we stayed ahead was that it was much more difficult to come into paragliding in 95. So people who came into paragliding in 95 and stayed with it had to be like crazy enough about it or passionate enough about it to sacrifice much more. Now it's relatively easier, so you don't have to invest as much. And but then here are people who invested more, and hence they had more stake in it, and they put more energy in it. So that's probably the reason. Now it's easier, has actually reduced the passion rather than increasing it.
Yeah, I'm coming to that point actually. If I see now, currently, there are more Indian pilots, I mean, particularly the current in progress competition in BIR 2018 Indian Open. Out of 95, 65 close to are Indian pilots. Okay, and quite a bit of them are flying well. So, if I see the competition scene internationally, if I take it, are we close to the potential of Indians, or the gap is still more?
I think it's still big gap between the, the first 3-4 Indian pilot and rest of the field, so that gap needs to be minimized. I don't see a reason why it's not minimized, because now you have access to better training, better equipment. But I also see huge disregard for training. People are still kind of insisting on making their own mistakes and their own experiments rather than learning from the right people, and then there's no coaching environment. And we don't have a system in place. Thankfully, we're having more competition, so that should help. But training has to be taken a little more seriously. It's otherwise it wastes time. If you're not consolidated, like people should go ahead from where we are, not try to reinvent the wheel to reach where we are, and they're not even reaching there yet. So there should be some mechanism or some system of training where the next generation has to go ahead of us, not just barely catch up with us. So that will only happen if they acknowledge the experience and they are willing to learn, basically.
Basically trying to say that 20 years have been invested by your previous generation. Take the advantage.
Take advantage and go forward. Yeah, don't reinvent the wheel. Learn this much, and only way to learn is to go down. And that's, I don't mean that I need submission of somebody. What I mean is a willingness to learn has to be there. If it's not an open mind, if you think that other person has nothing to teach to you, then of course you're not going to learn.
Just offering to take the advantage of what we have, and why not?
Yeah,
so that
exactly.
Whole country.
Yeah, you just have to open your mind and say that, okay, let me not waste as many years as they had to invest in it, and catch up on the experience and move forward from there. And I'll be very happy if my own students beat me someday rather than somebody else. And it's not even about winning or losing, it's about enjoying it and doing your best. That's what matters. Most of the competition is with yourself. Are you doing enough as per your skills? your situation as such. So
Do you think we have sufficient number of flying sites and number of competitions, or is there more scope for improvement?
number of competition has to go up even more. Sites we have enough. I think more and more are coming up. There are 4 or 5 sites that are coming up in Uttarakhand, and soon we'll start seeing competition there also. So sites are coming up, and as pilot skill level increases, we don't need all the time to have competition in a place like Dhauladar. We can have competition in a little more technical places also.
Yeah.
So I think number of events will only go up and should go up actually.
Yeah, basically, otherwise, what happens is if you have to go abroad and take competitions, it's more expensive in terms of travel because you're spending a lot of money
Yeah.
and a lot of planning, number of days. So all that can be avoided if we have more events.
Yeah, we should have 5, 6 events in each discipline at least.
That's the potential you think.
That's the minimum we need to have proper rankings in international ranking. You need about 6 events a year.
What's the plan for next 3 to 5 years?
I don't plan much, but generally speaking, carry on with teaching. Now community is slightly bigger, so I'm thinking more maybe emphasize on paragliding trips abroad also. Not so much for money, but just to fly new sites, new places. So I'm thinking Macedonia, Bulgaria, which is my favorite places, and Siberia, which I am also interested in exploring. So we might have these trips there, and I have this new cafe now, so keep on working that, extrapolate that. That's about it. And continue competing till my body allows me to. That's something I still enjoy.
So nice. It's a lot of experience you've shared right from the scratch, and I hope it will be very useful for youngsters. I hope the youngsters will take the advantage of what you've spent whole life into paragliding. Thank you so much for sharing your experience.
Thank you, my pleasure.